Just wanted to say welcome everyone. I know most of the regulars here, and welcome to Sean's family that's joining us. We're so appreciative. I'm Reverend Jake, one of the college chaplains, and like Reverend Loretta said, we will definitely miss Sean. We've appreciated him so much, and we're so glad he's going to share, his journey, his faith journey with us today. And I hope this is a nice kind of possible closing, kind of providing some closure for you with your time with us, Sean. And you've got an amazing story, so we're looking forward to it. You can take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Reverend Jake, and thanks everyone for being here. If you see me looking over here, it's because I have my notes on my big TV, so I can, if I'm looking back and forth, that's why. And before I get started, I just want to say that I'm going to try and go in chronological order as best I can. But it's hard to do that sometimes just because I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life and it's kind of all over the place. But I'll try my best, and at the end, if you guys have questions, I can clarify stuff for sure. And some of the stuff may not sound like it is related to like spirituality or faith, but it all ties together to what I believe is part of my, I guess, spirit. So just keep that in mind. So I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia, to two people who were in the military. Well, my mom was medically discharged before I was born. She has some health issues, which we know now is fibromyalgia and some other things I don't fully know. But yeah, so she was already out of the military, but my dad was still in the military. And when I was basically a small child, he was on a ship, on an aircraft carrier. So I didn't really see him very much the first few years of my life. I was baptized as a baby, young child. I don't really remember it. I don't remember where the church was exactly. I know it's in Chesapeake, but that's about it. And when I was about 4.5 years old, my mom and I moved in with my grandma. Excuse me, loud truck driving by. But we moved in with my grandma for a few months while my dad went out to California to do training for his job in the Navy. And during that time, I went to a United Church of Christ church my grandma goes to, and then a Southern Baptist church. I went there a few times with my cousins and my aunt. And at that time, I'll be honest, I didn't really like pray or anything. It was more of just like a fun hangout, see family and friends kind of thing. But at the age 5, a lot changed for me after we moved to Florida and spent a few months there. My dad came back, and me, my mom, and my dad all went to Japan, and we lived there for about 4 years. And so I would say for my spirit, a lot changed. We lived on a base, but the base was it was safe. So this was pre 9/11. Well, we moved there in 99. So we were over there when 9/11 happened, but pre 9/11, it was super safe. I mean, I could just walk around the whole base. No one would even think, oh, is Sean going to get kidnapped? It's just like, hey, go have some fun, go explore kind of thing, And on the base, there was a church. It was like a multi-faith kind of church. We went there a couple times, but they served communion there, and I didn't take communion because I have at the time I had a really bad gluten intolerance, so I couldn't eat the bread, and then my parents didn't want a 5-year-old drinking wine. So I didn't take communion, didn't really go to church much there, but I began to meet people from all over the world on the base. There was 2 schools in their DoD, Department of Defense schools. So basically anyone that was in the military station there, their kids would go to that school. So I met just a really diverse group of people. It was just normal for me. It was just kind of like, hey, I really got to see a lot of the Japanese culture as well, because my parents made quite a few friends with people off base. And so I learned a lot about the customs. Big one is like taking your shoes off when you walk inside, or if someone was sick, they just wear a mask. It was normal. So I guess I learned a lot about the Eastern way of living in a more collective-based society. But I still had, Western influence because I was on a base. But I also learned a lot about fear and stuff because, my mom started having these health issues that got worse, and the doctors over there couldn't figure out what was going on at the time. And I mean, these are military doctors, so and then 9/11 happened while I was over there, and that I was probably like 7 or 8 when that happened. So it was still pretty young, but I can remember it definitely changed things. And then one of the most significant things that happened over there was I had a teacher who told me in front of the entire class that my handwriting was pathetic. And so my parents pulled me out of school, obviously, and homeschooled me, but that kind of started this whole, I guess, really distaste for authority, so to speak, So, so soon after that, we moved back, and my mom got surgery on her neck, and that was a pretty significant experience because, like, this was the first time I was thinking about death and stuff, like, my mom could have died from that, and she didn't. She's fine now, but I also was diagnosed with autism and a disorder called dysgraphia. So autism for me, I guess I was a little bit behind on social skills, so I had trouble interacting with people and stuff like that. And the dysgraphia is a fine motor skill disorder, so I have problems with like my handwriting. So basically from 5th grade on, I used a laptop for taking all of my notes, doing any kind of papers. Hey, Angel, good to see you. So in an apartment, I entered middle school and was really alone because all the people that I didn't know anyone, and I was struggling socially because of the autism, and I got bullied a lot. And so I actually ended up standing up to one of my bullies, and I was in, I think, 7th grade, and I ended up, I wasn't just getting made fun of, I was getting like physically assaulted, like punched in the chest and, all kinds of crazy things. But I finally stood up to this kid and pushed him, literally just pushed him. And so the administration, of course, decided that we would both get the same punishment. So my distaste for authority grew quite a bit. And that's kind of all part of my spiritual journey, and I'll kind of make it all tie in. But, during all this time, my parents decided it was time for me to get connected with a different type of community. So I started going to an Episcopal church, and that was the first time that I really started attending church regularly, but I won't lie, the service itself was not my cup of tea. There was a lot of hymns, and hymns aren't my thing. I know they're great for some people. It wasn't my thing, but the theology of the Episcopal church I went to is very progressive for the time, I would say. They were very open and affirming to LGBTQ people, which was something that I guess at the time I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, one of our priests is an openly gay woman. Like, okay, cool, like whatever, And but we also did a play. There's a drama group that was part of the church, and we did a play on Matthew Shepard, who is a gay man who was brutally murdered in Laramie, Wyoming. And the whole play was about the town's reactions to it and stuff. But that really, that became, I would say, one of the most powerful experiences of my spiritual journey, just because I don't know, I've always been, I'm an ally to the LGBT community. I'm a heterosexual male, but knowing that someone was killed just for being gay was just really upset me. And so, there was a lot of good that came out of the Episcopal church there. I also discovered my love for the Beatles there and stuff. It was really great. And I also experienced, I guess you would say, God for the first time. I began to pray and actually connect with at the time I called this higher power God, or I guess you could say the Christian God. It was all around, Episcopal church in church retreats put on by Episcopal church members and stuff. But Eventually I ended up leaving the church. Well, my parents made the decision to leave the church because I had some particularly negative influences there in the youth group, and we decided it'd be best if we moved on. So now, before I go into the next church that I started attending, I just want to give you guys an idea of at this time when we left the church, I was in high school. And so I was attending, it's called Lansdowne High School. It's a technology academy. So it's a regular high school, but they also have like a tech track. And I was in the engineering strand. And I really developed a passion for technology. I don't want to be an engineer at all. I actually want to go to seminary, but I really find technology fascinating and really it's something that I think is really important for people to grasp. But I learned a lot about technology there. And the high school I went to was also very diverse. You had, you had people that were living in Section 8 housing, and then you had students in class with other students who were living in mansions. This was really diverse place, so diverse that Westboro Baptist Church actually protested out in front of the church because it had such a diverse population. But with all that diversity, there was a lot of conflict. There were fights. I was kind of pretty normal. And I also, my freshman year of high school, I almost went through a school shooting. There was a young man who was planning to shoot up the school's Columbine style. It was thankfully the police found out beforehand, but I bring that out because it really impacted me in a way that I guess I just realized that like you never know when death is going to come. It could happen any day, anytime, anywhere. So I began to I don't know, I guess become really kind of fearful or scared of the world around me. And the neighborhood I was living in at the time, not in the neighborhood itself, but nearby, there was quite a bit of gang activity. So sometimes some of the violence would spill over into the neighborhood. And at the high school, I did end up getting with a crowd that was not a good influence for me. Thankfully, I never got in trouble with the law, but my parents did end up discovering that I was partying, and they were not happy about that at all and ended up putting me on lockdown. So and that's kind of when we decided it was time to go to a new church. And so my parents discovered a United Methodist church that we started going to, and it was really great. It was a much more contemporary service. There was guitar and drums, which I particularly like a lot more than hymns. So I was excited about that. And some of the theology that they spoke about there, I could get behind. They talked a lot about the love of God and stuff. But there was this theology of atonement, which for me, from my understanding of it, is this idea that God sent Jesus down to be sacrificed so we could all be with God. And for me, I found that to be, I guess, kind of contradictory. Because the way I viewed it is if this God's love was unconditional, why do we need to have something to be sacrificed in order to get that love? So that's kind of one of the things that I started thinking about. And when you're 16, 17, you usually start questioning things and stuff. So I did that a lot. And also there was always I guess an underlying message of the importance and of I guess waiting for sex until marriage. And for me, it was something and so I was like, who are these people to tell me I can't have sex, kind of thing. So that kind of also was starting to I guess push me away a little bit from religion. But I still felt pretty connected. There was a lot of really powerful church retreats where I just felt this overwhelming connection to at the time what I called God and the universe, I guess is the best way I put it now. But alongside the United Methodist Church, I also started going to a music venue / church known as Club Relevant. And Club Relevant was I guess you would say, very radical ministry. It was an alcohol-free music venue that had a lot of heavy metal bands, and many of which were not anywhere remotely Christian. I would say some of them were the complete opposite, but they were allowed to play there. And basically, it was just known that like when they were on the stage performing, they could say things, but then they were expected to, just be respectful and courteous of not using too many curse words, kind of thing. And then there wasn't any alcohol allowed in the venue. That way, high schoolers could come here because, if you're in high school, you can't go to a bar, and that's where a lot of concerts happen. So, but on Thursdays, they had a service, like a church service type thing, but it was very informal. It was in a coffee shop, and there was just couches everywhere, and the pastor would just sit on a stool and talk. And, that just, I guess, radical hospitality and like loving on people who like, really churches didn't want people with septum piercings or giant gauges or tattoos and stuff like that. So that was kind of the crowd that I ended up really connecting with, and I made some really good friends that I'm still friends with to this day. And I also, tattoos and piercings are something that is very spiritual to me. I have now I have 5, 6 tattoos, and they all have deep meaning for me. So that's kind of why I bring that up. But some people at the United Methodist Church, they kind of didn't see it was very uncomfortable for them. So I think they kind of like made fun of me. It was more like poking fun. It wasn't like super harsh or anything, but it just, at the time I was like, well, why can't you just love me for me? Who cares if I have, a tattoo or whatever? So it kind of pushed me away little by little. And then the pastor, though, at Club Relevant, he definitely still had that idea of atonement, which was just something I couldn't get behind. And then I discussed my views of homosexuality in the Bible and how I thought there's been a lot of mistranslations and stuff. And so basically I was told I was wrong, but it was in a very nice Southern way, So it was, Matthew Dose, I know. So next I'm going to go into my, I guess, falling away from church altogether. I started community college and started attending a group called InterVarsity. And for those of you that don't know, they have chapters all over. And I want to be clear that my experience with InterVarsity was at this community college. It was not at Berea. I don't know InterVarsity at Berea. I know we have one, but it's not. I'm not going to say anything about them because I don't know. But when I started attending, I met and became close-ish with some very evangelical Christians, and they firmly believed in atonement for sin and that homosexuality was a sin. And I, like I said, at this point, I did not see it that way. And I eventually expressed my own views, and I can't say I did it in the best way. But basically, when I brought up my views, I was told that those views were heretical, and I'm trying to use the exact terminology. And that really, really upset me because like I had grown close-ish to these people, and so it really upset me a lot. And by the time I finished community college, I had ended up meeting someone online and started dating them and moved in with them very quickly. And FYI, that's not always the best idea, but that was a pretty rough experience. It was a very abusive relationship that lasted about 1.5 years. And she was a very diehard atheist, so that pulled me away from church even more. And I was seeing in the news and in person too, all these mega churches that were just focused on money, like there was a helicopter, like, I don't know, for me I think that's a bit excessive, but seeing that really, really burned me bad with church, and just everything all together kind of like made me come to the point where I even stopped praying. But eventually that abusive relationship, I ended it, and I moved to Florida in with my wonderful cousin who took me in. And, you know, when I moved to Florida, I was in a lot of pain, and I turned to some unhealthy coping mechanisms, kind of went back to that whole partying lifestyle. And, you know, that didn't lead me anywhere good. I ended up getting into, basically, I was at a point where I decided it was best that I check myself into a hospital because I was having suicidal thoughts constantly, and I needed to just, it was something to do, you know, I needed something to change. And while I was in there, I realized that I did not want to work retail anymore, because I was working at like a Lowe's for a while, and it wasn't my passion, you know, and my spirit was just not being fulfilled. So I ended up trying to do trucking, and I even got like over the road big rig trucking, and I got to a training facility and everything. Like it was ready to go. But then the DOT health exam, they asked, you know, about just, you know, mental health history. And of course, you know, I wasn't going to lie. So I told them about being in the hospital. I was like, well, dang, I had already, you know, basically up and quit my job. And well, unfortunately, I was unprofessional and burned a bridge with that job. So I was out of a job, didn't have a place to live. And I had a friend take me in, and I ended up getting back on my feet, getting a job. But my grandma kind of reminded me that, you know, about Berea College. And my grandma, who's on the call, Cecilia McKinney there in the corner, she reminded me that she came to Berea many years ago, and she reminded me that it's a place that I could go. And especially at the time I had turned 24, so the government no longer looked at my parents' income. You know, my dad's retired chief in the Navy, so they make a decent amount of money, and I don't think I would have qualified for Berea. But so I applied, and as I'm sure you guys know, I got in and all that. But before I go to Berea, there's one other thing I want to say about my time in Florida. And there was a lot of people that I was around that held very much more conservative views than I did politically. But I learned to have discourse, or I don't want to say discourse. I learned how to communicate with them in a semi-respectful way. And I think that's something for me that's very important. And when I was in Florida, I went to a church a couple times while I was down there. Not a whole lot, but it was one of those things I was dipping my toes back into the water. Excuse me. So then when I got to Berea, I moved into James Hall, which is a residence hall that is right next to Union Church, which is Union Church is the founding college, or the church that founded Berea College. I think everyone knows, but in case they didn't, but on the side of Union Church was a rainbow flag. And like I said, I'm an ally, and one of the biggest reasons that I left church was because people were being told that their identity was a sin, and like, so to see a church not doing that was very attractive. And so, you know, the last 2.5 years, just learning about all the story of Berea College, the social justice, everything that Reverend Fee did to establish the college and stand up against racism in the South before the Civil War, like that just, it blew my mind. And I learned about in a sociology class about Reverend Dr. William Barber, who is a minister who's leading a nationwide movement to basically stand up against injustices of poor people, you know, trying to make change both on the state, local, and national level. And seeing that kind of social justice just really kind of gave me hope for religion, you know, Christianity in particular. And of course, I met the CCC staff, and they were wonderful. And I started attending Seekers, and that was great. I'm not gonna lie, chapel was not, and it's not my biggest. I don't love chapel just because a lot of hymn music is just not my thing. But it's you know, I can get behind it now a little more. It's warmed my heart up a little bit. And But I think though the biggest things that really I enjoyed about the position as a student chaplain is being able to visit the religious communities. We visited a Sikh Gurdwara and a Unitarian Universalist church, and just being able to see people of a totally different faith than my own was just like, oh, like, okay, they like to feed the hungry too. They like to just hang out and talk. Like, it's not all that different. And oh, that's such a cute doggy. I also, with a close friend, I visited the Christian Muslim dialogue in Lexington. And then while I was there, I was invited into their mosque, and they invited me to pray with them. And that, I would say, was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. Just not just being in the building, but like actually being invited to do something so special to their own hearts. And it was really special for me. And I felt like, okay, wow, like for me, it felt very similar to how I pray. I mean, the actual act of, I don't, prostration, I think is the proper terminology. The act, like, I don't usually do that. So that was a little different, but the feeling and connectedness that I felt was very powerful. And, talking about my job as a student chaplain, I've learned to, I guess, just help people and listen to where they're at in life, and, kind of helping them being where they're at and not trying to like push them in one particular direction, but helping them find their own way has been really, it's helped me realize that I want to go to seminary and see, possibly become a minister. And yeah. The only other things that I want to talk about is so the GSTR 410 class. It's like the capstone that all the Berea college students have to take. I wrote my paper on the appropriation of Christianity by the Roman Empire. And I mean, I just wrote this like 5 weeks ago, but I would say that was really significant because I felt like I was able to really share a heavy critique of Christianity without, I guess, condemning it altogether. And I don't know, it was really special. And then, so now I'm at a place where, I'm going to church and I'm exploring different types of spiritual practices. A lot of pagan practices have become interesting to me. Just learning more about how to be one with nature and learning about energy and crystals and stuff like that. It's just been really great. And so seminary is what's next for me. And, I want to keep exploring different faiths and just seeing what they're all about. I mean, I think at the end rooted in Christianity just because that was what I was primarily raised in. But I definitely can totally get behind other faith traditions. And I think that like it's one of those things that, for me personally, I think we're all in this crazy world together, and we're being raised in different traditions. And I think eventually I think that there is a universal God kind of higher being that we're all connected to. And some call it, God, some might call it nature or whatever, and that's where I'm at. So yeah. So thanks for letting me share, guys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Tell me about your summer working with police and the church in rural Virginia.
Well, it was rural Pennsylvania, but thank you. That is actually something I forgot to bring up. Yeah, so 2 summers ago, I did an internship in Pennsylvania in an old coal town that was basically they have a huge problem with heroin and opioids because they had a doctor that was running a pill mill out of there. I mean, it was awful. But I spent 8 weeks riding around with the police every day, going on calls. I mean, I saw an overdose. I've seen kids in the streets with dirty diapers, no parents around, all sorts of things. And, it was it was very hard for me. I had to go to a lot of counseling when I came back because, yeah, but I really got to understand the world from the point of view of a law enforcement's eyes, and saw things a little differently. And I able to learn how to communicate with, have conversations about, you know whatever. We talked a lot about like systemic racism and stuff, like me and the police did, and like being able to have those conversations is really good for my career, because I think the only way we're going to see change on really anything is to have conversations. If you just go and tell someone that they're a racist and just leave it at that, nothing gets done. So, but thanks for bringing that up, Matthew. It was a pretty significant part of my journey I've kind of left out because I forgot. Anyone else have questions?
Sean, thanks so much for sharing your story. I've heard it in a couple different variations, a couple different times, and that was just beautiful to hear how it all came together. And really nice job. Thanks for being here with us. If you had to say right now, I know you've got some discerning to do and some time to think about it and pray about it, but where do you see yourself in ministry? After seminary and beyond. Are you kind of being called in a certain direction, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm glad you asked. Right now, I feel called to do. I guess the best way to put it is I don't know if I could just do a traditional, church where it's just hymns every Sunday and, maybe a Bible study once or twice during the week. The alcohol-free venue kind of thing is something that's possible maybe. Just basically I want to be able to, like, I don't know, just love on people that are in marginalized communities, that are marginalized from faith, especially Christianity, because of their either sexual orientation. If basically if they're denied access to a church because of their identity, that's kind of where I feel called to. Basically the most people that need it. I don't want to say need it the most, because I think, I don't know, that implies that Christianity is something that is necessary. But if I just want to love on people that are the most, I guess, that don't really get a chance to see the side of Christianity that I've come to know and love, if that makes sense. And doing, if there's more radical things to do, like as far as ministry, like prison ministry is something I've considered, but I'm not 100% because that's very intense. But something that I didn't mention about the music free venue is they would have on church, the Thursdays when they had churches, they would bring people in from that they knew, that it was almost kind of like seekers, but it would all be like Christian people doing various ministry outreaches. And I think that something that I could see, maybe not directly doing this myself, but getting donations or something like this, is they brought in a group of people who would go to strip clubs, and the females would go in and talk to the strippers and just hang out with them. And I think there might have been a little bit of attempt to convert, but also, like, they weren't just going in there to talk about the Bible. They were bringing in, and they were giving condoms to the strippers because, I mean, I think it's no secret that people that work in strip clubs often, do sex work too. And so they were bringing condoms in, and then the males would stand outside with the bouncers and just talk to them, get to know them. And I think that kind of radical hospitality is kind of what I want to do. And I don't know if it would be with a strip club necessarily, but just, I guess, the most marginalized populations that society just regards as worthless because of whatever.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. It reminds me of the Nadia Bolz-Weber book that we read for class this summer, just kind of like a radical new idea of church. So I can't wait to see what you do in your future creatively. It'll be great.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Sean, that was really cool. I've, heard your story. Of course, I've been there for part of it. But that was really cool. Just like hearing it, all together and like what your future plans are. Congratulations, man. You're so awesome. I love you. Can't wait to see you soon.
Yeah, I love you too. That's my cousin, by the way, for those of you that don't know me. No.
And Sean, I want to say that love is the answer.
Yep.
Very true. I would agree with you there. For those of you that don't know, that is my grandma, who the one that told me to come to Berea. So
Thank you for giving us Sean for a while.
Oh, you're welcome, but we get him back.
Okay, if you
So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
yeah, that sounds about right. Somewhere around 2 weeks. Yeah.
About 10 days.
Okay.
Oh, and since I see a dog there, I will say too that animals. Oh, he can hear me. He looked over when I said it. I love animals too, and I mean, like, I don't know. I think animals have spirits, and like being able to connect and bond with an animal is such a special thing. And that's a really important part of my journey as well, which is like a Japanese dog. And he was with us until basically right before I graduated high school. And I would say he was my family's guardian angel, because he was definitely an unofficial ESA for sure. Because all three of us were, it was hard at times, and having a creature to be able to just love on was wonderful. So.
And now you're going to get a cat.
I am.
And all my dogs can't wait to see Uncle Sean.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my cousin is a mini Australian Shepherd breeder, so she has an army of Aussies running around.
Oh, wow.
Anyone else have any burning questions?
have you considered two things? First is a comment, which is, first of all, prison ministry is awesome and fun, and once you get over the adrenaline, it's actually the most rewarding thing ever. And the second being, have you thought about being a professional chaplain at Berea College?
I mean, I've tossed the idea around. We'll see how my master's goes, but yeah, I think the first qualifier is a doctorate, but yeah, it's definitely not opposed to it,
Good question, Matthew.
I think whatever I end up doing, it's going to be interfaith work, just because I don't know, I don't know. I've just grown up around so much diversity. I couldn't just work at a cookie cutter church, which, I know some people that is what they enjoy, having lots of people that are very similar to them. For me, I like to be around, people that I don't know, like this group, I don't know, just everyone's so diverse here. It's cool to hear everyone's different outlook on life and find some commonalities, because I don't think that my way or my outlook on life is the perfect way, because I know that I have believe it or not, I have imperfections and flaws. So. Yeah,
absolutely, Sean. And I I took seminary as a time to kind of explore, ministry and where I felt, called, and at Louisville Seminary is where I found the college chaplain call, doing an internship, field education there. So I'm really excited that you're going to a place where you'll be able to really explore and test out, where you feel called and comfortable. But you're well on your way. You're a lot farther along than I was. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. And also, for those of you that don't, well, I think most people know, but I'm non-traditional. If my story didn't give that away, so I'm 27 and about to graduate. So I'm a little different than I think a lot of the students that go here, because I didn't just come here out of high school kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's kind of, I'm glad that I came to Berea when I did, because like, if I was coming here straight out of high school, I may have gotten into some serious trouble and kind of thing. So just because, I was at the time more interested in partying than trying to, explore what I want to do. So I think it all worked out just the way it was supposed to.
Sean, I'm just curious, being a little bit older than the traditional student and having some different experiences before you came, do you think that affected how you approached your education?
If I heard you right, you kind of cut out for a sec. You asked if me being non-traditional older has affected how I look at education. Is that right?
Yeah, and having other experiences as well before coming, did it affect how you approached your education?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because like the way I thought about it is I was coming to Berea. I had 2.5 years to basically get a degree. And I mean, like I came in here and I knew that I wanted to study sociology. Of course, I had no idea what sociology was, but I was like, well, that sounds about closest to what I would, what would be best for me. So I'll just go for it. And then instantly I fell in love. But like, yeah, I really had to think a lot, because 2.5 years sounds like a long time, but it's flown by. It's like I'm still like wrapping my head around the fact that I'm graduating in 3 weeks. But it's I think it's because I'm older. I don't know. I I I can see not only the tuition free thing of Berea College, but like the whole, I don't know, the quality of education here is just so much better than a community college, that I don't know. I really wanted to soak up everything I can while I'm here.
Good.
Well, we're getting close to the
I
end
think
of
we
our
still have some
time.
time if there's any other burning desire questions.
Yeah. Is there anybody else?
Oh, okay.
Got a few minutes left. All right, not hearing any. Sean, thanks so much. We appreciate you. Great job. Thanks for being here. Good to see Sean's family. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining in.
And we'll see everybody back next week for the last Seekers of the term. Thanks again, Sean. That was great. Wish you the best.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See y'all later.
Bye. See you later.